Getting into Chapter 239 shifts the spotlight hard onto Red Baron and expands the broader antagonist web once again, while the heroes are still in the thick of rescuing Momo, dealing with the dinosaur situation with Gigi, and processing the heavy feelings from the previous chapter's Okarun confession to Ira about Momo. This chapter mostly leaves them on the back burner to build up the opposition. It's a setup-heavy chapter that gives us massive context on why certain villains are moving the way that they are. The title drop is perfect. We finally get the man behind the smoke and the origin story for his name. Now let's get into it. Moving into the pacing and structure of the chapter, the pacing here is solid but a little scattered, fitting for a multi-threaded style chapter that Dandadan usually produces. It jumps between the points of 1 being a heartfelt flashback for Red Baron, point 2 being his present-day resolve and hunt, point 3 would be the hospital confrontation that he has with the Bull Power user, and the last point would be the quick cuts to the airport reveal and the shrine and support cast scene. It feels a bit all over the place at first, but it works because every thread serves the bigger picture. This chapter is more character-driven with key action beats. Structure-wise, it opens strong with the bike ride and flashback to hook you emotionally, then builds tension through the hospital and plants siege for future team-ups and mysteries. Overall pacing feels deliberate for a calm before the storm kind of chapter. It doesn't drag, but if you crave pure action like some previous arcs, this one is more about setup and lore. Still flows well and keeps you coming back weekly. Next, we will move on to the character components that we can draw from the chapter. This chapter is great and filled with character work, especially for the antagonists. And the first one we will start off with is Red Baron, and he is the star of the chapter. We get his tragic and loyal backstory where he stepped up to defend Guiaz de Raiz from the declining high-status Delacroix family when her peers were clowning on her family status. His overwhelming tobacco stench comes from the heavy smoker old man's curse. He wears red simply so Guiaz can spot him easily. When she asks him what to call him if she can't find him, he jokingly says, "Heavy smoker old man." She laughs and dubs him Red Baron, a reference to the World War I flying ace, tying it to his smoke powers that can drive away enemies. His motivation is pure loyalty, and as we find out later, love for Guiaz, and he's hell-bent on restoring the Delacroix family for her sake. This, like most characters in Dandadan, gives context to him and his actions, finding it hard to see him as just a random smoke villain. Some people I've seen even forgetting that this man put Seiko in the hospital by stomping on her chest. We see his fury when remembering how he was forced to surrender his Enenra power to Vlad thanks to Saint Germain's influence. Now he's on a mission to steal back powers to help her, and I would imagine that she is elsewhere fighting Yatagarasu level threats, but who knows. Now onto Guiaz de Raiz, and she gets more layers as a noble fighter with emotional ties to Red Baron. She kind of has that will they won't they potential looming over her. We don't know what she would be. We just have this one backstory so far, and a lot of people that I've seen online think that she may either be somebody that Red Baron likes and is just a figurehead, or is somebody that has similar powers or threats to the Yatagarasu that we saw previously. Next, we'll move on to the Katetsu power user, or the Iron Bull and Minotaur. We find he is a family man. His wife's incurable illness gets mysteriously cured overnight, seemingly by those that helped Momo, maybe by the word of Seiko, perhaps. He seems ready to hand over his power somewhat peacefully after the miracle. Next point would be on the hero and support side. We see Unjizuma is out here looking for the main crew, running into Miko and Kei, and as well as Adachi. This plants seed for a potential support squad or a new team-up. Next, we'll move on to the last point and possibly the biggest, which would be the character bomb of confirmation of the fake Manjibo theory. We've seen online talk about it, and the real one was kidnapped and tied up in the airport locker. Same spot from earlier chapters that we saw even before the going through the plane with the hurricane and the eye of the storm. The imposter, who is possibly that Kunoichi or Shinobi girl that may have messed with Momo's memories before, is possibly the one who gave Okarun the Ogre Club, and has been playing the long game, possibly cultivating his latent powers to ripen for stealing. This deepens the mystery around Okarun's training and the club itself. Next, we will move on to the story progression and lore components of the chapter, and story-wise, this chapter advances the antagonist's power struggle while the main cast is off-screen handling the immediate rescue of Momo's group, Gigi and the Dinosaur, etc. Red Baron is now actively hunting powers to empower himself and aid Guiaz. We see him confront the Katetsu guy at the hospital right after his wife's miracle cure. She had a dream of a white-clad masked man healing her with a hammer, which is why I suggested earlier that it was probably the people who had helped Momo. Moving on to some of the lore drops that are very juicy in this chapter. The first one we will start off with is the Red Baron's full origin and name, smoke powers plus loyalty to the Delacroix family. Next point would be the power theft mechanics confirmed even for those on Vlad's side. Red Baron lost his Enenra power to Vlad, most likely via Saint Germain consultation interference. Now he's reversing it by stealing from others. The next point would be the broader villain ecosystem. We have Vlad's goal to become the ultimate yokai, which we don't know anything past that. His connections to Count Saint Germain, which we don't know past what we already know of Count Saint Germain. We currently don't know about the Black Paladins other than that they are tied to the, I think, 12 or 13 families that go with the lore that the Delacroix family is a part of. And we have the power harvesting, which we already have been well into because of most of these arcs so far. The next point we will go over is that Manjiro's imposter was real, and it must have happened right after the airport drop-off in earlier chapters. The fake one has been feeding info and training Okarun strategically. On to the next, we have the healing miracles linked to masked priests or doctors, and that expands the supernatural factions and possible ties to previous arcs. Last point that we'll go over that I saw for the lore components in this chapter would be the Delacroix family decline and Giaz's situation add political and noble family stakes to the yokai world. Also noting that most of the people who were making fun of her for her status level were dressed like buffoons. This pushes the arc toward large-scale conflicts, potential big battles and power clashes, and maybe even unlikely alliances or redemption arcs for characters like Red Baron. The support casts, including Zuma and Miko K and Adachi, getting spotlight suggests the found family elements are expanding beyond the core trio. Moving on to my final thoughts for the chapter, this was a strong lore and character chapter. Not the flashiest, but one that makes the bigger picture way more interesting. Red Baron went from mysterious smoke guy to a compelling, tragic, ride-or-die villain with real emotional weight. The name origin scene was genuinely wholesome and hype at the same time. The multi-threaded structure keeps Dandadan feeling alive and unpredictable, even if it jumps around. Confirming the Manjiro plot and expanding the villain power game has me cooking theories for days. Is the Red Baron heading for a redemption arc? Will he clash with or team up with the heroes? What's the full deal with Vlad and Saint Germain? Those are questions that pop up. Overall, a solid 8.5 or 9 out of 10 for me. It rewards longtime readers with deep cuts while setting up the next wave of chaos. The arc is currently cooking, as most Dandadan arcs are. We're building towards something massive with all these threads, like rescues, power thefts, team-ups, and imposter reveals. Alright, but what do y'all think of Chapter 239? Is Red Baron going to be your new favorite side character? Do you have any additional comments or theories to add on to the fake Manjiro and the Ogre Club situation? If you do, drop them in the comments below and we can discuss those or comment back. But once the next chapter drops, we will be there for it. So we will see you in the next chapter. Alright, see ya.